Hello, goddesses. I hope you are well. Today, I'm coming on here to talk to you about a massive transit that just occurred this week, and that is Uranus moving into the sign of Gemini, where it's going to remain for the next 8 years until 2023. We're going to talk about why this is a big deal, how you can leverage this energy in your own life, and what changes that you can expect on a global collective scale. For those of you who are not aware, I'm Ashley Rose, astrologer, human design reader, and feminine energy mentor. So let's hop in. So for the past 7 years or so, we've had the planet Uranus in the sign of Taurus. What does Uranus represent? Uranus is the great innovator. Uranus is that crazy planet in the solar system. It's the only one that actually rotates on its side, so it shows how different it is. Uranus is also the planet that rules over the sign of Aquarius. And when we think of the Aquarian archetype, that's the individual, that's the innovator. They're quirky. They might be a little bit of an individual, a little weird. Definitely like the type of person who marches to the beat of their own drum. All these things are very Aquarius. All of these things are very Uranus. And we actually have a lot of Aquarius energy in the collective right now because you may remember that Pluto moved into the sign of Aquarius last November, going to be there for the next 20 or so years. So that's massive. And now Uranus is moving from the sign of Taurus to the sign of Gemini. And again, 2025, if you've been following my videos at all, or if you're part of my Bloom membership, you know already that we've been talking for a while about how 2025 is a massive year collectively. This is a once in a lifetime year where all of the outer planets, all the planets that are further away, Pluto, Neptune, Uranus, even Saturn, they've all changed signs in 2025. The last time this happened was over 200 years ago. All of these planets have different orbits. You know, Pluto might take 20 years to orbit one sign. Uranus can take about 7 to 8 years. Neptune might take 13, 14 years, something like that. So for them all to be changing signs at the same time in 2025, that's why this is a year of massive change, massive transformation, massive upheavals. That's why when we're watching the news cycle, things feel like they're just happening constantly this year. You know, you turn on the news and there's just seemingly big events occurring every single day. And a part of that is because so much is changing with all of the outer planets changing signs at once this year. So we already had Pluto changing signs in November of 2024. We had Neptune change into the sign of Aries earlier. Saturn changed into Aries. And now we have Uranus just this week on Monday, July 7th, moved into the sign of Gemini. Now, let's talk about what this means for us as a collective. Here are some key themes. Again, Uranus being the planet that rules over innovation and sudden changes, unexpected changes. I think about things like science, AI, technology. These are all very Uranian topics. I really think about Albert Einstein as being a very Uranian archetype. You know, he's got like the crazy hair, he's got like the wild ideas and the downloads, and he literally like revolutionized the face of what we understand with quantum physics and down to the atomic level. That is very, very Uranus. Lots of change, lots of sudden change, seemingly out of nowhere. Even something like the internet is a very Uranian topic. So, and then we have the planet or the sign of Gemini. What does Gemini represent? Gemini represents communications. Gemini represents our immediate environment. So, like our neighbors, our siblings, our friends, like our car, the immediate environment around us. Gemini is also the twins. So there's duality. For people that have very strong Gemini influences in their chart, meaning their sun, their moon, their rising, maybe their Venus is in the sign of Gemini, these people, one, can often see more than one perspective at a time. Again, we're looking at the twins, like two signs, two sides of the same coin. Also, the fact that Gemini is a sign that is very much about intellectual conversation, intellectual chatter, banter. People with strong Gemini are almost obsessed with collecting information about the world around them. Very much like jack of all trade, expert in none type of energy. Like someone that has really deep Gemini energy is going to know a lot of things, a little bit about a lot of things, right? Gemini just loves to collect information. Gemini loves to be in the pursuit of knowledge. Gemini loves to be in the action. It's a very outgoing, extroverted sign that is all about connecting with other people, connecting with knowledge, connecting with information. So, what happens when we have the great disruptor, Uranus, moving into the sign of Gemini for the next 8 years until around May 2023 or so? What does this mean for us as a collective? Well, some key themes. We can expect a revolution, again, Uranus being very much about revolution of the mind, voice, and communication and connection, which are all Gemini themes. Some more key themes. We can expect between now and 2023 to experience radical ideas and innovation and communication. I'm talking about new social media platforms, like the next big thing outside of YouTube or Instagram, a new way for especially probably young people because Gemini is a very young, youth-oriented sign. Maybe young people are going to be communicating in new, almost like discreet, secret ways that like millennials and other adults like don't even really understand. There might even be lingo that comes out or slang that comes out that unless you are like super young and super hip, you don't even really understand the language because it's just so fast and so innovative, very slangy. We can expect that. Again, if you are a digital creator, an entrepreneur, someone that uses social media in any way for business, pleasure, content creation, all of that is going to skyrocket. Gemini is all about communication, all about social media, and Uranus is also about innovation on the social media platforms. So I am predicting between now and 2023, there being new massive social media platforms that come out. Again, something that's different and might become even bigger than our Instagrams or our YouTubes or, Facebook. Who's even thinking about Facebook anymore, right? It's like there's going to be something new most likely that comes in these areas of like how we as human beings connect and communicate with each other. Because again, despite all of the flack that social media may get, and maybe rightfully so, as far as its impact and like people's psychological wellness and like anxiety and depression and things like that, and like dopamine hits. Social media, at its basic core function, is us connecting to other human beings. And under Uranus and Gemini, we can expect a massive revolution in how we choose to connect to each other, the channels through which we communicate and speak. Absolutely. I also see, again, shifts in how we learn, how we speak, how we write, how we connect. I really feel like there's going to be massive changes in even like language and how we talk. Slang, which I mentioned earlier, but also like right now, like we text, we WhatsApp, we slide into people's DMs. Maybe by the end of this transit in 2023, there's going to be even more different ways that we can communicate and connect and speak with one another because of the energy that this Uranus and Gemini transit is providing for the collective. We can also for sure expect there to be technology breakthroughs, a massive evolution in AI, and also a decentralization of information in a way. So, what do these things mean? First of all, AI. I personally love AI. I'm not even that techie of a girly. Um, but AI like already has revolutionized the way that I conduct my business, my social media, and honestly, like if you're not on the AI train, or if you're someone that's almost like resisted AI because you're thinking about maybe like the human rights impacts. And again, my background is in international human rights law. So I've studied like the challenges around artificial intelligence, AI, and the human rights violations that are possible with AI. So not to diminish those challenges, because if anything, we're going to have to address them. It's just going to get worse and more front of mind, right? And outside of those challenges, just for like normal day to day, AI is going to completely be taking over, I predict, our lives in the next 8 years and probably for like the rest of our lives to come, honestly. So if that message like scares you or you don't like that, I'm sorry, I apologize. But these Uranus and Gemini is like throwing like a powder keg onto the fire that AI already was. This Uranus and Gemini is just going to supercharge AI technology integration into normal life. It's going to get to the point where like you're going to be using AI to like order your latte. at Starbucks or whatever over the next few years. Or you're going to be using AI to like find your next best car for your family or like find you your next best like vacation or whatever. Like AI is here to stay. And not only is it here to stay, it's going to get stronger under this transit. So, if you are one of my girlies that is not very techy, who is worried about the negative, like human rights and other consequential impacts of AI, here are some tips I have for you. One, learn how to become familiar with AI in like a super neutral way in your life. Like, how are you using AI? Even seeing how when you are using Google search, maybe, and their Gemini function, again, Uranus and Gemini, even the Gemini function, the AI of Google is called Gemini, so on point with the energy. Just start noticing how AI is already in your life. Maybe it's already being used when you're doing your Google searches and you don't even notice this. Or notice how AI is already being used or ChatGPT when it comes to like your social media or other things like that. Like one, just acknowledging where AI is already in your life. Maybe you're one of those people that like talks to Siri every day and has Siri like do control in their house or like has Siri turn the lights on and off. Like just noticing where AI is already integrated into your life might make it a bit less scary. And then two, again, AI is just a tool for us as human beings. We created it, we control it. Seeing where AI could possibly fit into your life and be an advantage. If you are a solopreneur, AI is almost like an assistant for you now, where before you would have had to maybe hire someone in your business or set aside income for consultants or things like that. Now you literally have access to AI for much cheaper, much more efficient, and you can use it just to completely build out like multiple income streams and funnels and things like that. That's one of the ways that I use AI in my own business. It's amazing. Anyway, this is not an AI ad, so I'll keep going, but I just want to throw that out there. Another key theme that we can expect with Uranus and Gemini: rebellion against outdated belief systems, against outdated media systems, and against outdated education. Again, Gemini is all about learning, education, knowledge, insights. So whatever is no longer working, whatever is broken, whether it be like our American like education system or different like media, like the news and how that we are currently consuming that and how it's sort of like destroying everybody's mental health and things like that. We are going to see a big change, I think, in how we consume media for better or for worse. It could get a little bit worse actually before it gets better. Gemini is not a sign that is like known for balance. Gemini is also a sign that can be a bit prone to like being too much in the head and overthinking and anxiety. So you can even see that rising. If you're someone that maybe has an unchecked, unhealthy media habit where you wake up in the morning and the first thing you do is the minute your alarm goes off, you hop onto your latest news feed and you're like looking at news articles, or you're literally like sitting there in the toilet scrolling through the news, or you are like constantly reading emails of the latest like political updates or war and things like that. Under Uranus and Gemini, information is going to be disseminated even more swiftly, even more quickly, often with even less controls as far as like truth or like verification. And so you could see yourself like mentally spiraling if you are being irresponsible in your consummation and your consuming of news sources over the next 8 years. So I recommend even like instilling some kind of media diet where you are very intentional with like what media sources you consume. You're intentional with how much time per day you spend consuming the media, because this year in Gemini, the media consumption is only going to get more intense, more in our face, more global, because Uranus and Gemini is going to be all about disseminating information, whether true or not, as quickly and as swiftly and as far reaching as possible. Okay, that is what this transit is going to be doing over the next 8 years, I believe. And so just being very, very aware of your media diet, now is a great time to do that. We might also expect unexpected changes in our social dynamics, our relationships, and our communities. Again, Gemini is your immediate environment, it's your community around you. Whereas Sagittarius, Gemini's opposite sign, is all about like international travel, international platforms, publishing on a global scale. Gemini is more like at home. So you could see changes happening in your immediate neighborhood, your immediate community, groups of people, friend groups. There might be massive innovation even in like how we consider like our groups of friends or how we interact with our neighborhood over the next few years. That could be major too, especially I'm thinking about like, small intentional communities that might be popping up, like people who are wanting to get back to the earth and like totally like live in the woods and like, um, turn their own milk and grow their own vegetables in their farms and make their own, apple cider, whatever. We could see really intentional communities with Uranus and Gemini popping up. We could also see more misinformation forming different communities, like flat earthers, things like that. People who are almost in echo chambers and are only getting information from certain sources. And then they are deeply believing this and then shaping their worldview around that. We can see that become a big thing with Uranus and Gemini, I believe. So be very careful again, like how I just said, with like media consumption, your diet, like where are you getting your news from? How intentional are you in what you're consuming? There's going to be so much noise and so much information that's going to be thrown at us over the next 8 years with this Uranus and Gemini energy. And so just being very, very almost becoming a master at like what gets through your auric body, what gets through your screen, and what you are consuming down to the cells in your DNA. What memberships are you a part of? Who are your best friends? What is your community? That's going to become even more and more important under Uranus and Gemini. I really do believe that we're going to get more echo chambers occurring where like-minded people, for better or for worse, are going to get together, are going to spread their beliefs to each other. And then there's going to be maybe more division in some ways because people that think different things about the world are going to not agree as much with Uranus and Gemini. However, there's also the potential to create really strong, like-minded communities that are built on similar value systems and similar ways of seeing the world and similar perspectives, which can be really nourishing and affirming when you find those types of communities that feel like coming home to you. And then finally, we can expect a collective awakening around truth, language, and conscious expression. Again, in the way that like fake news became a thing around 2016 in the United States, and that whole idea, that concept kind of spread globally. I see like fake news and misinformation again just becoming really front of awareness over the next 8 years. Where are you getting your media? What are you consuming? Is it true? Is it not? Is it verified? Or is it just like random people on the internet speaking about crazy things and you're just being like sucked into like conspiracy theories and black holes of information and things like that? Because that will happen to people for sure. But at the same time, I do think there may be some kind of collective awakening around like how we do express truth and how we express ourselves through language and conscious expression. Because at the end of the day, I do believe that humans are like good people who do want to live in a world of like verified truth. And that might be like almost a spiritual battle that we undergo as a collective over the next 8 years. Like, what is truth? What is not? Is your truth the same as my truth, the same as someone else's truth, or are there multiple truths? Again, mark my words, you heard it here first. This might be something we can expect under this Uranus and Gemini transit. We can also expect a lot of changes when it comes to things like trade, communications, um, travel. Again, Gemini really ruling over like trade, transportation, trade routes, supply chains, and then Uranus being the great disruptor or the great awakener. So the way that we even like, if you think about, if you're a member of Amazon Prime and you think about what it takes for you to like order something and it's literally sitting on your front doorstep 2 days later, coming from like anywhere in the world or whatever, we can see changes to that. We can see changes to how we like go to the airport and how we fly, how we use Uber or even like self-driving cars. I predict that self-driving cars are going to become a massive thing under this Uranus and Gemini. Again, Gemini being transportation and Uranus being innovation. I think about when I was a kid and I used to watch the Jetsons and they had the flying cars. And I always thought, well, when are we finally going to get that? Over the next 8 years, this might be that period by the end of this time period where flying cars are available to humanity. Who knows? The world is our oyster. We shall see. But I definitely see at least, if not flying cars, like driverless cars becoming more of a thing. And then what does that do to like the Uber economy, where Uber and other, like services like Lyft or what have you, literally employ probably millions of people around the world. Well, what is the disruption going to be when like self-driving cars become more of a thing? And Elon Musk puts all of these like Uber drivers out of business because he's like propagating his electric self-driving cars around the world. These are the massive cultural challenges that we may all be facing over the next 8 years. Okay, so you get my drift. Another thing I really want to touch base on with this video is that Uranus being about revolution and change and freedom and originality and independence from tradition. If we're looking at Uranus and Gemini from a historical perspective, Uranus was in Gemini, for instance, when Johann Gutenberg invented the printing press back in 1440. And that was the start of the printing revolution. They literally went from books literally being like only in monasteries or like with very rich people and information, printed information was not accessible to the average person. And the printing press literally brought like newspapers to Europe and other destinations where now even the average person, if they were literate or not, maybe they had someone reading it to them, they now had access to information in ways that had previously only been reserved for the very wealthy, the very rich, literally those who are part of the monastery or the wealthy societies. So change like that massive might be something that we're seeing when it comes to Uranus and Gemini. Uranus was also in Gemini during the start of the scientific revolution a few centuries ago, when we were learning about like atomic changes at like the level of the atom and electrons and neutrons and positive and negative poles, and which eventually led to like quantum physics, like I mentioned earlier with Albert Einstein. All of that scientific revolution, knowing, understanding how the planets were moving, that we were not a Earth-centered solar system, that we're actually a sun-centered solar system. All of that, like Copernicus, all of that, that was happening when Uranus was in Gemini a few hundred years ago. So we can expect the same level of like massive explosion of discoveries and innovations under Uranus and Gemini this time. I also will say that the last three times Uranus was in Gemini, the US found itself at war, okay? During the American Revolutionary War, the US Civil War, and World War II, all of those times, Uranus was in Gemini. So just throwing that out there. So again, rapid changes and disruptions even in the way that we communicate, think, speak, connect. Changes in business, trade, supply chains, transportation, the way we fly, the way we drive, scooters, things like that. Electric vehicles, I believe, are going to explode, all of that. New technology related to transportation and commercial matters and travel. Lots of like decentralization and also urbanization happening at the same time. And then also really good for like startups and like biz techs, things like that. What does this mean if you are a business owner or an entrepreneur or whatever? Again, my tips, get comfortable with AI and learn how to integrate it into your business. AI is not going anywhere. So it only help you if you're able to leverage the power of AI for good versus the evil that some people will be trying to be doing as far as like what AI is going to be doing as far as like challenges to human rights and privacy and data collection and things like that. We will see those challenges, but like better that we have people on the side of good than just people on the side of not so good. Again, accelerated digital transformation, disruption of media and information, lots of flexibility in work. I feel like a lot of work will change. People will be changing industries, changing careers, maybe going from the 9 to 5 to now becoming entrepreneurs or really getting their side hustle up. All of that, like really embracing a spirit of experimentation. This could even be down to like if you're somebody that wants to like learn a new language, like French or something, or you're someone that wants to start a blog or become a DJ or take cooking classes, just go for it. Gemini loves to learn. Uranus and Gemini is going to support any new skills. Again, Gemini being about skills that you decide to grow and expand over the next few years. And then I would say, as far as just like any final thoughts, like Uranus and Gemini is going to be such an exciting transit. It's going to be super fun, super fast. Time is going to go like that. And the way that Uranus and Taurus over the last 7 years feels like Uranus was in Taurus forever, like since 2018. It just felt like it dragged on. Taurus is such a slow moving sign in a lot of ways, and Uranus was not very comfortable there. It's what also led to a lot of like up and down in financial markets and things like that, with Taurus representing those things. Uranus and Gemini is going to be quick. Time is going to move even faster than it's moving now. So if you already feel like this year's zooming by or time is zooming by, like, well, freaking buckle up, Buttercup, because it's going to get even faster with Uranus and Gemini. Um, really embrace experimentation. Don't be afraid to fail. Don't be afraid to try. Don't be afraid to experiment with new things. Gemini and Uranus are both signs and planets that are all about innovation, experimentation, everything I've been saying. So, especially if you are either like an entrepreneur or like a creative, a content creator, or just someone that wants to try something new, like I said, like your new like DJ side hustle, whatever, this is the perfect time to try that experiment with Uranus and Gemini and just see where that takes you. And then the final word I want to leave you with today is remembering that the complete purpose of Gemini is connection with others, communication with those around us, communication with our environment, even communication with like Mother Nature. And Uranus is here supporting us and finding new, creative, beautiful, expansive ways to connect with those around us. So, especially if you're someone that feels like since post-pandemic, that you've lost connection maybe to community, or you are feeling lonely, or you feel like everyone is like always online and you really miss that like human interaction. I believe that Uranus and Gemini is going to help expand human interaction, both in person and then also over technology, over the internet, over, the phone, texting, WhatsApp, things like that. So if you are someone that's like craving more human connection, well, your time has come because Uranus and Gemini is going to support that. I love you all so much. I hope this was helpful. Definitely leave any questions below or anything else that you're wanting to explore more of. And I hope this was informative, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.